this is a part that is emotional for me, is I remember talking to her on the phone, and I was like, we're outside, like, come outside. And she's like, I can't walk. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
so I get out of the car, and I go into the lobby, and I see her scaling the walls.
Yeah. That's how I was walking.
With this hat on and bruised.
Not your sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so my phone has been blowing up with family members, specifically siblings, looking for ways to help their brother, sister, whoever it might be, which makes this conversation today very meaningful, very helpful. I am joined by Sean and Kathleen McGowan. Kathleen, 5 years sober. Sean, the day we air this episode, will have nine years. Both work at High Watch Recovery, both paying it forward. But it didn't always look like that. So, Sean, I want to start 9 years ago, St. Paddy's Day, or 9 years ago, March 17th. What happens?
I wake up to a knock on a hotel room door from my brother in Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, actually, we were in a hotel in Park City, Utah. My sister was not there, but we had attempted to drive across the country and bring me to treatment. And just the night before, I, on a whimsical decision, decided to drive down to Salt Lake City and try to get high one more last time with heroin. That's where I feel that some sort of higher power entered in my life, because I didn't get high that day. I sat at a gas station and thought about what my life would be like if I was homeless as a drug addict, or what my life would be like if I potentially got sober. And so I woke up, thought I was going skiing in the canyons in Park City, Utah. And there's my older brother saying, this trip's over and we're getting you on a plane to Southern California and you're going into treatment today.
And the journey started, though, in Pennsylvania.
It did.
Kathleen.
Yep. I had just turned 21, and I was a queen of geographic change. And the opportunity arose to drive across country. I had just gotten arrested, and I wanted to get out of town. And
What were you arrested for?
Drug paraphernalia, intent to distribute, the whole nine. They came into the house. That was the whole thing.
So you were well on your way.
Yes, definitely. I was, just turned 21. And looking back on it, we've talked about this separately now, like that we have so much clarity, and just like having no idea kind of the state of mind he was in. And so each night we had these hotel rooms across country. And like I was going out to the bars, and he was like detoxing in these hotel rooms each night. And day after day, like the driving got a little sketchier, and like it just was getting a little erratic. And we made it to Salt Lake, and but I'll let you tell the story kind of when we got there.
But it started in Pennsylvania. And so at the time, you're at your dad's place?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're an IV heroin user, using heroin?
IV and heroin user. We're in March of 2017. I had just got out of treatment in December of 2016, and the goal was to go back and get a job and live on my own. And I was a guy that did really well in treatment, but once I got out, I had no defense against the next drink or drug, and I found myself shooting heroin, driving to Baltimore every day, sleeping on a futon in the guest room at my dad's townhouse in Pennsylvania, with her bedroom right next door.
Yeah, and I'm smoking a bunch of weed and other substances, and just having a time
So you're 21.
Yeah.
And what is your perception of Sean at the time?
I was like, I don't really know. So Irish Catholic family, it's like I was kind of in the dark for a lot of years, right? So he had been struggling for years at this point. Yeah. And it was like everything I've found out was like that I've pieced together, or that I've like overheard the conversations with my parents. And it was very much like, we're not going to talk about it. We're definitely not going to talk about it with Kathleen, because she's young and, she won't understand. And so at one point, I think I had knocked on your door in Pennsylvania, and I was like, let's go for a drive. Because I was like, he's struggling. Something's going on here, And I took you for a drive, and he was like, this is so like awkward. You're my little sister. I'm like, dude, we're way past that. Like way past
What's
that.
the age difference?
8 years.
8 years. So you're
Yeah.
29, she's 21. Mm-hmm. You're living at your dad's. Are your parents separated, or are they?
No, my dad's job had moved. We grew up in Rhode Island. My mom was a school teacher. They were kind of in their last leg before retirement. And my dad's job headquarters had moved to Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So the goal was for my mom to finish out her ride as a teacher in Rhode Island, my dad to finish his job in Pennsylvania, and then they were going to buy this retirement home in Delaware, which they are there now.
Yeah.
So there was a few years where they were separated, living domestically, and then my mom would spend the summers because she was a teacher at the townhouse in Pennsylvania. So when I had a place in D.C. and I went to treatment in the fall of 2016, I gave up the apartment. I had lost a job. I had lost a girlfriend. I'd really lost everything. The goal was to get me to go to California for this 6-month program because my cousin had success in this program, and at the time at 4 years sober. And I manipulated and pushed my mom that it's Christmas, I need to come home after this treatment, I swear I'm not going to use. And I had heroin tucked away in the spare tire of my, in the back of my Honda Accord, and I didn't make it 6 hours out of treatment, which she picked me up in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and drove back to my dad's place. We went to the mall, and then I got back, and I was sitting in my room alone, isolated. I had no idea how to stay sober. Next thing I knew.
So you went to treatment knowing that you had a bundle of heroin waiting for you in the spare tire of a car.
With no intention to use it, though.
No intention. Yeah, no intention to use it, right? And your dad's name?
Mike.
Shout out Mike, friend of
Mike.
the pod. He
loves the
pod. Loves the pod.
Loves
So
it.
we appreciate you, Mike, if you're listening out there, and hopefully this is a cool moment for you, seeing your two kids on the mic talking about
He's been through it.
recovery. And there's one other. Is it one other sibling?
We have two other. My younger brother, John, who found sobriety right after I did, and then my older brother that lives in Salt Lake that put me on the plane that day.
Not sober.
No.
Just
Just
totally
normie.
normal. What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Yep, pretty much.
Okay.
Yep.
So you start this. So your parents kind of set this boundary. They say, Sean, you're going to treatment for 6 months at this program where your cousin had some success, and they volunteer you to drive.
Yeah, I was all about it. Yeah, I was like, let's go. And I was, I thought it was like, and I had been traveling at the time. Like I was going to music festivals, and I loved it. So I was like, this is going to be great. No conception of like the depths of like what was happening, and like how the family system was just like in shambles. And I'm like, this is gonna be fun.
Did you have drugs for the road trip?
No, so we left on a Monday, and I drove down to Baltimore that Sunday with hopes of grabbing as much heroin as I could. In my sort of messed up way of thinking, I thought I needed a gram of heroin a day to get across the country. It's going to take about 4 or 5 days to get there. I remember sitting in this McDonald's parking lot, meeting up with my drug dealer, and I said, "This is it, man. I'm leaving, and I'm going to need this to get across the country to go to treatment." I was not sold heroin that day. Come to find out, I was sold ketamine, and I shot up for the last time in that Baltimore, West Baltimore McDonald's parking lot, and came out of that, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, I'm done with this. And I walked over to the dumpster of that McDonald's parking lot. I threw everything away that I had, and I said, I'm going to get across the country without anything. And I drove back home, and I was sick as a dog. When we woke up the next morning, I'm like, oh.
Sick as the hot dogs. I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
The hot dogs.
yeah, like gas station hot dogs.
Yeah.
Nothing better than a hot dog withdrawal. So you start this journey, and when do you arrive in Salt Lake?
I mean, we spent
Couple
the night in
days,
Chicago,
yeah.
Lincoln, Nebraska. So it was probably the third day we got to Salt Lake.
So I was like privy at this point to what was going on, because the night before in Nebraska, he had his phone linked up to the TV, and I saw like this sketchy message pop up on the TV. And I was like, so that kind of like got my attention. And then the next day, driving super erratic, and then he went and got this like haircut for 2 hours. Comes back, no haircut. And so I went against everything that all the messages that I've ever been told as a child, like don't ask, and I like looked in his backpack, and there was a bunch of paraphernalia, and I called my older brother, and I was like, we gotta like get him on a plane or something.
From Salt Lake.
From Salt Lake.
And
like,
you didn't get high.
I didn't get high
Yeah.
that day. And I sat in that parking lot of that gas station. I really thought about it. I was like, there was a couple homeless guys leaning against the gas station. And I was like, I could just go be with those guys, and it'd just be much easier on my sister, my brother, my parents, all the people that love me in my life, and I'll just vanish. And there was a moment of clarity, and where it was like, Sean, just get back to that hotel and get the treatment and try to give this thing another shot. And I'm telling you, Zach, like, I really, to this day, I don't remember turning the key in the ignition. I don't remember putting the car in reverse. Next thing I knew, I was driving from Salt Lake back up to Park City to the hotel, and I didn't get high that day.
Why did you guys decide to drive? Why didn't you just fly?
My ego, like if I'm
Yeah.
going to California for 6 months, like there's no way I'm going to be carless. I hadn't been carless since I was 16 years old.
So
and
we
like,
needed the whip.
Yeah, I needed the whip. And like, was it the right thing to do? Absolutely not. I mean, the ironic thing about this story is that a month prior, I went out to California to scope it out. Like, I wanted to make sure it was a viable place for me to get sober. Slept at my cousin's apartment. He brought me to a couple of meetings, and he tried to convince me to stay. It was a Super Bowl where the Patriots came back against the Falcons, and we were sitting on the
28-3.
rooftop. Yep. We were sitting on the rooftop. He's like, Sean, there's nothing back there for you. Just stay and go into treatment. I'm like, no, man. I was like, I got to take care of some things. And like, you know, deep down inside, I just wanted another month of running.
So you're 29. Your brother wakes you up in the morning. You take this flight from Salt Lake to San Diego. Is that?
I flew into Orange County, John Wayne.
And you drove.
And I drove the car the rest of the way. And I was like, I don't know. Because I didn't know that he was not getting high. Like, I saw paraphernalia. I'm like, he's getting high. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to drive this Honda Accord with East Coast license plates, like so dirty, with God knows what inside the car. And I like stopped at Zion. Like, you know, I was like, maybe I should stop at Vegas. Like, just turned 21, you know. And I ended up dropping the car off at the sober house, and like had a chat with the owner. And he's like, you know, we're going to take care of him. Like, he's in a good place. I'm like, okay. Like, no idea.
But you knew nothing, Kathleen, about recovery.
I knew nothing. Like, and I didn't know anything until like I had my journey, you know, and like, which I've since, you know, made amends to him about. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And just, you know, how much he was struggling.
So Sean, you enter into this program and you get sober finally. What do you attest to? Why did it work that time?
I think that was the longest I'd ever stayed in treatment. I think my cousin being involved in a 12-step program and knowing a bunch of sober guys, that I found their lives attractive. But like, I wasn't the guy that came into treatment guns a-blazing ready for recovery, man. Like, it took me a couple months. And I remember my cousin telling me, because I've been waiting for this phone call, where like the pain became so great that I picked up the phone and like was just so desperate. It was like, kill myself. I can't get high because I know that's not a solution. Or like, find what my cousin has found, because I saw him at the depths and I see his life now. And I remember calling him and he's like, come do what we do. And I showed up to this men's meeting in Laguna Beach, California, and that's where I got a sponsor, and that's where my life changed. And I took every suggestion, not because like that, like there was no fear inside of me of like, if I go back out I'm gonna be dying homeless, but like I was so tired of being so sick and tired that I was willing to take some sort of suggestion. And I would say at that moment in time, 6 treatment centers later, that like I was ready to take a suggestion and do something different.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's coming up for me is just the idea that, and the big book talks about this, and there's a period where we just need to be separated from drugs and alcohol, right? Like that physical withdrawal that we go through, and then we can actually start to get involved in the work. And that's why I believe, you know, at Release and High Watch and some of the programs, you know, we work at and believe in that long-term model. I mean, the 6 months thing really sticks out for me in your story. And so, Kathleen, you drop him off at treatment and you go move on to a weed. Like, what is your crazy next thought? Like,
I've just been following him around the country, actually. So I had met these people shortly after I drop him off. I fly back to Pennsylvania. I was working as a hairstylist, going through court, you know, because I had just been arrested. And you drop your brother off at rehab.
You've just been arrested for drugs. Did the thought ever cross your mind that perhaps you know?
Because at this point, like up until I entered treatment, my perception and idea of what a drug addict was, it wasn't me. it was him, it was my other brother, it was, it's not me, definitely not what I'm doing.
Because he's doing heroin and you're just
right,
smoking pot.
right, or like, it started with the pills and that sort of thing, and I'm doing these like other things, and like there's no way I'm a drug addict, because I know what drug addiction looks like, and it's not me. And but yeah, it didn't even cross my mind.
What did your household look like growing up?
I mean, we never went without, right? My mom was a hardworking school teacher. My dad he worked in Boston, so it was an hour commute every day, and he would get up at 5 a.m., he'd go to the gym, he'd work 10 hours a day, and he'd get home at 9 o'clock at night. And I have vivid memories of being ecstatic, like when he would show up for baseball games and basketball games and all that kind of stuff, because I know how hard he worked to provide for our family. When it came to a big Irish Catholic family, my dad one of 13, my mom one of 4. I was thinking about this example last night. We do these crazy, it's not as crazy anymore, but when I was a teenager and a kid, these family reunions every 2 years, literally 100 of us. And we get a beach house or multiple beach houses somewhere in the country, and we go down there, and a lot of it was a drink fest. Like I said, it's not like it used to be. But I remember I was 14, 15 years old, and I went into my aunt's cooler, and she had some Budweisers, straight up Budweisers, and I took a few of those, and she caught me, and I thought she was going to be upset. She wasn't upset that I was drinking. She was upset that I took her beers. Right?
It was very much alcohol was the center of every get together, and it's just what it was. And so when I got sober, I remember going to this family like baby shower, and I was like, oh my God, there's going to be tons of alcohol there. And it was not that way at all. That was just how, like, my perception of it. But, very much heavy drinkers for sure.
But it was always work hard, play hard.
Yes.
If I went through every single one of my aunts and uncles, all of them have been really successful in their work ethic. And yeah, they like to have a good time, but that was just the culture. So it was like, one end of things, they worked their ass off, and the other things that they could enjoy themselves.
Mm.
And is it safe to say you guys grew up in a loving home?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How much of that do you guys credit to your sobriety? I mean, the fact that you always knew that the love was there.
I think to a certain extent it was almost too loving because we wanted to keep it inside. And like I say this when I'm at High Watch to all of our families, and I think my mom, Kim, shout out to Kim, one of the biggest mistakes that they probably made was not talking about it. Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, Zach, every time I went to treatment, I would call my mom, and like one of the first things that she would always tell me is, don't worry, your family, your friends, your siblings don't know where you are and what's going on. And so it was like to this point where it was so much pain, and there was so much grief that was going on with addiction in our immediate family, but none of us talked about it.
Right.
So like to a point where it's like we wanted to keep it inside, and we thought we could fix it internally. And until we outwardly started expressing ourselves, like they needed to recover, just like I needed to recover, I think that's when things really started to change.
Right.
And back to you, Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
Youngest.
Yes, 3 older brothers.
What did that feel like growing up, as
yeah,
the youngest child, 3 older brothers? I mean, obviously before, I think Sean was a decent athlete. Mm-hmm. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
And some other stuff. So,
I mean, I always say, like, I've had the isms, like the isms of the alcoholism since I was a kid. It was always like me not feeling a part of, because there was an age gap and then the gender, and like I just wanted to hang out. Like I just wanted to be involved and hang out, and I was always like reaching for that. So it was like, what can I do? Like how can I alter myself, chameleon myself to just like, hang out with you guys or do whatever you guys are doing. And that started very young age, and that carried, through till I got sober. But there was a lot of that, a lot of not feeling a part of, but it was just so loving. Like anytime I needed something, like I have 3 older brothers and they show up, and I think I love the term, like, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better, and I feel like that sums up our family, because we just didn't know like what was going on, my parents especially.
What are your parents going to think listening to this podcast?
I mean, when I woke up this morning, I was kind of thinking about this. Like, we've talked about it like very fragmented, like bits and pieces of the story, but like we've never really like sat down and kind of broke it down like from point A to point B. Sometimes, I mean, we can laugh about it now, but it wasn't
Right.
funny then whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I think kind of piecing it all together, is probably going to be very interesting to them to see the dynamic between the two of us who now live together, work together on this sobriety journey together, which is pretty cool. But like there was some dark years, and like one thing that came to mind to me this morning was like Kathleen was in middle school and high school when my addiction really kind of lifted off. And I remember my parents kicking me out. I was renting an apartment for my grandmother in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and my uncle went in there and found, I was paying $200 a month and I never paid her for it. And my uncle going in there, because he took care of the property and locked the key, locked it so I couldn't get in. So I was essentially homeless, living out of my car. And I remember texting her. She was a freshman in high school.
Not even. I think I was like in middle school.
And I was like, I need a blanket and I need food. And I remember parking
As
out.
an eighth grade, you're
Yeah,
like in
and
eighth grade.
and like backstory is like he's not allowed at the house, and like I don't know that, and so I get this text from my older brother like, hey, like I need some food and a blanket, and I'm like, okay, do, and I bring him out like a box of stale Cheez-Its.
Yeah. No, actually, they were extreme goldfish, which I don't think they make anymore. I ate them. They were absolutely horrible. And then the blanket was extremely comforting living in my car. But, like, I just remember her walking down the driveway with the blanket and the goldfish. And it's like, what is my life come to? I'm asking my, teenage sister to, like, bring me food and a blanket because I have nowhere to live,
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you go back to Pennsylvania, Kathleen. Sean's getting sober, and you move to a weed farm. Is that?
Yes.
Tell me the story of that. How do you end up on the weed
another
farm?
geographic. I had moved to Pennsylvania my sophomore year of high school, and then I had met
So when
these.
she says geographic, if you're listening, in sobriety, we use that term a lot, right? You kind of try to move away from your problems, and we find that it typically doesn't really work.
Yeah, I take me with me, right? So it's all you people. It's this job, it's this environment, it's these people I'm surrounded with, and if I can just get out of here, like everything will be okay, right? So I met. I mean,
just on that thread, and as folks in sobriety, I think one of the things that when I'm active, I like to blame everyone and everything, and when I'm talking to people about getting sober, it's about taking some of that accountability.
Yeah.
So.
100%. Basically, I met some people and they gave me a job opportunity on this like black market farm out in Humboldt County, California. And I drove across. So I just come back from Cali, and I drove across country with like $200 in my pocket.
What do you tell your parents you're going to do?
We've talked about this, and like I really don't think they asked. I was just like, I came home. My dad talks about this.
Sean had beaten him to a pulp. They were probably just like, go.
Yes.
Pretty
and
much.
I came home and I said, Dad, I'm moving to California tomorrow. And he was like, what? I was like, yep. And I started packing all my stuff, and I left all this stuff at his house, which then he retired a couple years later and had to pack all my shit up. And I just left with like $200 in my pocket, and like I don't even know these people, and I just went out there. I brought one of my friends with me at the time. I convinced her to come, and we're like living in a tent on this farm. And I was like, I'm going to make it. Like, this is a big business. People are making a bunch of money out here. And I had so much pride and ego. And, like, I just wanted to, like, make something of myself, right? And so I went out there and I worked really hard. And I, like, made a good name for myself. Like, I was trustworthy and everything. But the addiction out there, it's like work hard, party harder. And, I got into substances I've never tried before.
Break it down. What are you using? I mean, like, come on.
Yeah. So at this point, alcohol, cocaine, and when I moved out west, I started getting into nitrous, which is like a huge thing on the West Coast. And I remember the first time I saw someone doing nitrous from like a tank. I was in Philly, and I was like,
classic Philly.
Yeah, and I was like, these losers, I was like, I would never do that.
Hippie crack, ice cold fatties.
Yeah. And ended up changing the course of my life for the better. I can say that now, but yeah, everyone was into the nitrous out there and just the party drugs, the MDMA, like garbage disposal, like anything I could get my hands on. And I honestly hadn't been sober more than 48 hours since I was in high school, you know, and that was kind of the life I led, just smoking weed all day, drinking. And, you know, I was out there and what I now know is that I moved out there so that I could live my life how I wanted to. I could party how I wanted to. I could use drugs how I wanted to, and I could drink how I wanted to. And I would come home every once in a while, and it was just like, it was like this thing no one talked about. I'm like out here on a weed farm doing my thing, and then I would just like go back, and no one really talked about it.
I mean, she was proposing business plans to my uncles at some point in time, and like people were getting bought into this thing.
I'm sure. I remember it. I mean, one of my buddies, I think, started a staffing agency for growers because they needed so.
But I worked my way up. Like I went in there as like bottom level, like, you know, they call them like trimmers, and then I like had a real interest in the greenhouses and the plants and everything and the nurseries. And by the end of it, like we were renting a little piece of property, and like I loved it, you know.
So you're a real marijuana executive.
I guess real marijuana executives are probably laughing at me, but I mean, it was a time, like it was a short period of time, but it was an adventure, and my addiction like thrived in that, you know, it was masked.
So there's 4 years of that, but there's this role reversal because Sean, you are now in treatment, you get sober, you complete the 6 months. You're living a life of sobriety. Are you thinking about Kathleen? Does it, like, at what point do you understand that my sister might have a problem as well?
There was always this dynamic with our family, like out of sight, out of mind, right? Where it's like, unless you have significant proof that they're doing it, like you didn't believe it to be true. I sort of was in this mirage of like sobriety, which was awesome, and getting my life underway, and like genuinely deep down inside, like I thought she was living her best life up there. You know, I really did. I was like, man, maybe she found her people. She's telling me about these people that she's met, and then things over time started to get dark. I started to get text messages and calls from my mom because like there was like copious amounts of money being spent at head shops.
They thought I was like doing money
laundering.
laundering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like, I mean, fast forward, I mean, later we find out she's buying massive amounts of nitrous.
Spending thousands of dollars on nitrous in a day.
Whippets.
Yeah.
And you maintained that habit for, I guess, 4 years, right?
Yeah. So it really took off towards the end because I realized that I had a problem with alcohol, and I vividly remember
the nitrous was not the problem.
No, not at the time. Not at the time. And then it was all the problem. But I was trying to stop drinking, and so I started using nitrous heavily. And I'm not drinking though. And I remember like posting on the internet like 6 months sober, like from alcohol, right? And I'm like getting high every day, like just unreal. Just
no, that's something we see all the time, right? I mean, like I can't shoot heroin, but I'm gonna drink like a normal person. And so when do you move back? Tell me about that 4 year period of time when you put your life back together and she's kind of spiraling.
Yeah, so I mean, historically, before I got sober, I had some experience working in the non-alcoholic beverage space. I worked for Coca-Cola for quite a few years in Washington, D.C., and I remember I was like 4 months sober, and landed some job out there, and I thought like this was it, like I made it. And I go to my sponsor, and I'm like, I'm gonna take this job. And he point blank told me, he said, Sean, you might be one of the most ungrateful motherfuckers that I've ever met in my life, and you're going to get down to the YMCA and start volunteering until you understand what the word gratitude means. And I did that. And, eventually, a couple months later, worked for Dr. Pepper Snapple. And then about 18 months sober, I get a call to come back and to start my work in this field. And I worked for the place that I got sober at for about a year.
What's the name of that program? Give them some love.
Yeah, I went to this place called SCRC, Southern California Recovery Center's 6-month men's intensive outpatient sober living program. My cousin got sober there. I got sober there. We went to a men's AA meeting every single day.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I needed. And I'm very grateful for my time there, the house managers and all the people that I met. And eventually, fast forward, I'm 3 years sober, and I'm like, California is just not doing it for me anymore. I'm digging a financial hole. It's really expensive to live out there. My parents just built this brand new, beautiful house in Delaware, and I want to spend more time with them.
Right.
And so I meet some people on the East Coast and land the job at High Watch, and I've been there ever since. I'll be celebrating my 6-year anniversary at High Watch on March 16th, and then my sober anniversary is March 17th.
That's
is
amazing.
Cool.
So you're working at High Watch. And we're gonna tee this up because I know where you literally came from today, Kathleen, or what you've been working on.
Mm-hmm.
You're working at High Watch. How do you, Kathleen, end up in Ohio, or take me to your rock bottom moment?
So there was, this guy, obviously, in my life. And basically, long story short, we had to get out of town in California. And
why did you have to get out of town?
There was some theft, and
you were
there
stealing.
was some people after us, and it wasn't good. Yeah. And so he was from Ohio. And at this point, the relationship was really terrible. It was, just toxic and not
abusive.
Great. Yes,
Physically?
very abusive. Yes. Yep. And so that was the golden ticket for him, because it completely isolated me from everyone I knew in California, where I had built a life for the past few years. And so we drive across the country. COVID just happened, and we have the truck, the trailer, both uninsured. He doesn't have a license. My car has a huge crack in the windshield, no insurance, just hot. And I'm detoxing, driving across country. I think people are following us. I'm waking up incontinent. I'm losing my ability. So at this point, this is November, October of 2020.
Let's stay on that thread. You're losing your ability to use the restroom properly. Is that what you're telling me? Yeah.
Yep. And so I'm just, it's terrible. So we at this point, so this is November 2020.
From the nitrous.
From the nitrous. Yeah. So from what I've come to learn is that nitrous cuts off your body's ability to absorb vitamins. So basically what happens is your spine deteriorates and you get spinal degeneration. And so it starts with numbness and tingling, and then your balance goes, and then you can't walk, So it had started when we traveled across country. I was getting numbness in my legs and in my fingers.
Operating a vehicle.
I think feds are following me, just paranoid, paraphernalia.
Yeah, that's some crack cocaine thinking right there.
Yeah. And so we make it to Ohio, and it's November, and just totally isolated. And at this point, I didn't know where to get any cocaine or anything else. So, and then when I drank, I would fight back. And so I wasn't allowed to drink, And so we just started doing a bunch.
He didn't let you drink.
Right. And so we started doing a bunch of nitrous. And at this point, I knew I had a problem with alcohol, and I didn't really want to drink either, because it didn't end up in a good situation. And so we were just heavy doing nitrous. And so,
Sean's working at a treatment center.
And he's working at a treatment center.
And still to this day, you have not put your hand up and said
no, because at this point, I don't think I have a problem.
You land in Ohio.
I land in Ohio, and completely isolated. I'm starting to lose my ability to walk. So gradually, from November to when I got sober in April of 2021. It just slowly deteriorated. I couldn't walk by myself. I stopped driving.
Does the guy know? Does he?
Mm-hmm. And at this point, I convinced myself that I had MS, because that's how in denial I was, that I didn't have a problem.
Right.
Yeah. And it was dark, man. It was really dark. I couldn't work because I couldn't walk, and I couldn't drive. And at this point, it's important to say, I was estranged with my family at this point, because my parents didn't want me with this guy, and I hadn't talked to my family.
When was the last time you had seen them?
The ski trip.
Yeah.
We went on a ski trip
Right before COVID.
Right before COVID, and she had broken up with the guy, and we were all like, we're like ecstatic, we're happy, right? And we're like, you're not going back with this guy, and like, and she was all confident that she wasn't gonna go back with this guy, and it was kind of like her last chance to like get rid of the guy, rejoin with the family. I'm sober, my brother's sober, and like this, we had a great ski trip in Park City, Utah, and she went back and she got with the guy, and for that year, I mean, very limited communication. I don't know if we spoke at all that year. I barely spoke to my parents. So she was very estranged at that point for basically a full year.
So you bottom out. And you pick up the phone.
Yes. So.
And you call Sean or you call your dad?
I called my dad. So the night before, I just remember laying in the house I was in. God bless this family, but like, it was bad, like hoarded out house, holes in the floor to the basement, and it was just not good. And I just remember like laying in bed and being like, I have so much potential. Like, how did I get here? And like, what do I do? And I started praying, like, get me out of this situation. And there was a really bad physical fight. And then the next day, day in the life of a drug addict, we're like in the car, and it happened often where we would fight, we would get high in the car, we would fight, and I would sleep in the car because I would get left in the car and I couldn't walk back in the house. So it's like February in Cleveland, Ohio, I'm like sleeping in the car.
And you're beat up.
And I'm beat up, dude. Beat up. Yeah. So it's this similar moment of like clarity. I'm in the car and we're fighting, we're getting high. And I just whip out my phone and I call my dad, and I was like hiding my phone under my leg, and I put it on speakerphone so my dad could like hear what.
What are you feeling right now?
It's just like crazy to think about. Like, you say in addiction, like, how did I end up here? And I say the same thing in sobriety, like, because my life is so much different, and I have so much compassion for that girl, And it really was a divine moment, because my dad has asked me, he's like, what made you call me?
God.
That's what I said. But the crazier part is that he answered the phone, because we hadn't spoken. I was uninvited to Christmas. I was not allowed home. No one was talking to me. And I called my dad and he answered the phone.
What do you say? What did your...
So I was hiding my phone, and the phone got found by this gentleman, and he's talking to my dad. And
You're being way too nice to this guy.
Yeah, I know.
Calling him a gentleman.
I know. And my dad's like, frankly, Mike, shout out. He's like, I don't really want to talk to you. Like, put my daughter on the phone. And I was like, Dad, I have MS. That's what I told him. And I need help. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yep, that's the situation. I can't walk. I have MS. That's what I told him. And
So Dad calls Sean.
Dad called Sean.
And where are you when you get this call?
Oh, this is going to get emotional for me, this
I
whole
know.
trip. So I was living in Connecticut, and during COVID, we were doing these virtual AA Zoom meetings, and I did every Tuesday night, As Bill Sees It, and I'm sitting there reading As Bill Sees It, and I get this call, and I just get three-wayed into like what was absolute chaos and commotion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you heard screaming. I don't know what's going on. And this guy is outside the car. I'm trying to get in the car. And I'm like, the only thing I can think to do is just show up. Right. And I say this all the time. Like, I'm sober. I can answer the phone. I have gas money in my car to figure it out. And the best thinking that I had at that point in time was I'm going to get her an Uber, get her to a hotel, and then I'm going to get on a flight and I'm going to go to Cleveland. And it's 7:30 at night. There's no flights out of New York or Connecticut to Cleveland, Ohio. So I call my dad, and like we found this meeting point, which ironically enough is the same town that we left, years before to take the journey to go out to California to drop me off at treatment, right outside Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
What's the name of the town?
It was in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And that's where my dad lived. And my dad came from Delaware. I came from Connecticut. I think we met there at midnight. We drove to Cleveland, Ohio through the night. And we're like, let's get a hotel. We're going to sleep for a couple hours. And I mean, we might have slept for 45 minutes before I got a call from her. So we get in the car and drive over there. And like, this is a part that is emotional for me, is I remember talking to her on the phone, and I was like, we're outside, like, come outside. And she's like, I can't walk.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I get out of the car and I go into the lobby and I see her scaling the walls
Yeah. That's how I was walking.
with this hat on and bruised.
Not your sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was beat up, like black eye, bruised lip, and God bless the Uber driver. Like, so they called me an Uber to get me out of that situation and go to a hotel. And the Uber driver like walked me to my room and like helped me check in. And I just remember like so many emotions that night. And they were at this point driving through the night. And I was just like, you know, my life's about this. The gig is up. They know. And I held on to the fact that I wasn't using drugs until the moment I entered High Watch. And like, I thought that like I could keep this under wraps, you know? Like,
Did you know you were picking her up to take her to treatment?
I didn't know what to do. We picked her up. She wanted to get her stuff from this gentleman's house. So we went over there. Luckily, there was no one home. To rephrase what she said about the house, like in the living condition she was in, I took one step in the front door and I said, I can't go in here. I'll be in therapy the rest of my life if I witness like the living condition. There goes Missile Mike, right in the house,
My dad's
gathering all of her stuff. And like, she was so adamant about returning this modem. For
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
reason. So we're driving to the modem, like the
internet store.
internet store. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I'm just going to bring her to High Watch. Like, they got therapy. They got doctors.
Did you eventually say, like, I'm on drugs?
no.
No, that was the whole thing. Was she was like, I'm not going to rehab. I'm not a drug addict. And I stopped the car and I said, Kathleen, I said, you got a one-way ticket wherever you want to go, or you can come to High Watch. And she quieted down and, you know, took her to High Watch. But there was a whole thing on the way there because, thank God, shout out to Dr. Boris, the medical director at High Watch. I called him right away and I was like, I don't know what's going on with my sister. I think it's mental health. Like, that's literally what
Yeah.
I said. I had no idea what was going on. And so my dad and I pulled over this rest stop.
This is big.
And I was like, I'm going to give her privacy to have this conversation. And so my dad and I go in the rest stop, and like then we get back in the car, and I'm like, don't think anything of it. And then like he texts me, and I look at my phone and I read it out loud because I had no idea what he was talking about. And she's in the backseat, and I'm like, nitrous oxide induced anemia? I'm like, I thought it was like cancer or something. Like, I had no idea. It wasn't even in my scope of understanding. And like
And
and she flipped
out.
out at that point in time because he was
Flipped out.
saying, bring her right to the hospital. Like, we can't care
you can't
for her.
come here. You have to go right to the emergency room. And so
And what hospital do you go to?
I went to Yale, and I was in the hospital. I was in the neuro ICU for 2 weeks, and then I don't know how you got me a bed it was like this inpatient rehab,
At Yale.
physical rehab. It's called Gaylord's in Wallingford, Connecticut, and I was there for 4 weeks.
And what are you doing this summer?
And I just accepted an offer to be a nurse at Yale.
The same
5 years
hospital.
later. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And I told that a version of it in my interview about how the nurses there were like incredible and I was having a hard time and
You still got the job.
and I got the job. And I got like emotional in the interview and I was like, these like badass ER nurses probably think I'm a wimp. Like, but I think, you know, I told that story. But so, you know, I'm in the back of the car and Sean's like, these are my resources. Like, you're going to high, you know, we go to high, like, what's your plan? And I was like, I'm on plan Z, dude. And I thought, you know, I could just go to my parents' house, sleep it off for a couple days, and I'd be good. And he convinced me to get on the phone with the big dog, John, in admissions. And this was monumental. It wasn't a rest stop. You guys pulled over on the side of the highway, the turnpike, Pennsylvania Turnpike. And him and my dad got out of the car. And that was the first time in my entire life that I was honest on the admissions phone call.
With John.
Yeah, because I was so scared that I was never going to walk again. I was so scared. And then then Boris got involved, the medical director, and then I think your pitch was that like everything was confidential. And so when Boris hit you with that message out of like safety, you know, it wasn't about confidentiality, I flipped out. And so and it was during COVID, so I get dropped off at Yale Hospital. It's like 10 o'clock at night at this point. And I'm in like a hallway, and they were going to discharge me. And I know no one in Connecticut. I am homeless. I can't walk, and they were gonna discharge me. And Sean was like, they're gonna come assess you, and you need to like amp it up a little bit, all right? Because you need to get admitted. And I was like, Sean, I don't really know how much more you want me to amp this up. Like,
I've been huffing nitrous for 4 years and I can't walk.
yeah. And I tell this story. I run a big book group for the whole community at High Watch, and I tell this story. And one of the top neurologists came up to me, and it was the first time I'd ever been honest about what I was using and what I was doing. And he looked at me, and he was like very confused. He was like, what were you doing? How much were you using? And I told him, and he's like, well, why didn't you just stop doing that? And at that moment, I realized, like, you know, not everyone understands addiction, and that, like, oh, wish I thought of that 6 months ago, doc. Thank you very much.
Right.
And I realized in myself that, like, I couldn't. Like, I didn't stop because I couldn't, you know?
So you get through your 4 weeks at Yale where you were just hired, and you enter into High Watch. Sean is running the show up there. I mean, he's a very well-known employee and spiritual guide for a lot of people. What was that like for you, Sean, watching your sister come to campus?
Honestly, I was super excited to get her up there. And she tells us
You're just always gassed on recovery.
And I was flying. I was driving the
Oh,
car.
so fast. I was like, slow down,
No,
dude. Like,
the moment I remember, because it was still COVID-y, and like everyone would have to admit through these trailers at High Watch. And I remember, and she probably doesn't even realize this, but I was standing on the other side of campus, and I saw her come out of the trailer with one of our admissions reps. And at that point in time, they'll bring her to whatever group that she's supposed to be in at that time. And I remember there was a group outside, because it was like a nice day like it is today in New York City, and they were holding the women's group outside. And I remember like them bringing her to that group, and she sat down, and I said, like, this is where I have to take my hands off the wheel. You know, it's like not in my hands anymore.
yeah. And like, it's so important to say, and like, I think it's, I want to make a point to say this. That,
Kathleen, real quick.
Yeah.
What is it watching Sean right now? Like, what is that?
He's
clearly emotionally.
It brings me, like, I hate to say joy, because it's like we've gone through so much and our stories are so intertwined. And like, there was a period of time where we couldn't be in the same room and we were going through our own struggles separately. And like, now it's just like amazing. And I love hearing the other's perspective of it. 'Cause like I said, like we had never talked about things in our family. So to like come together and hear the other side of it, it's so cool.
And at what point in your stay do you realize that you have this thing, that you're...
Yeah, so I come there. It took me, so I had already been in the hospital for 6 weeks. So I'm like 30 plus days sober. And I had been probably 60 more days at High Watch until I admitted that I was an alcoholic and an addict. And what happened, and I'll tell you what happened.
That's the delusion of this thing.
Yeah.
That's what people fail to understand.
Yes.
You're talking about someone that was incapacitated.
Yeah. I'm walking with a cane.
And still,
Yeah.
I don't have this thing.
And so it's like these people are telling me, you know, these facilitators and these therapists at High Watch, they're like, if you don't admit you're powerless and that your life is unmanageable and work these steps, like, you're gonna die. And it's like, well, don't you know, like, I don't care. Like, that's what I was trying to do. So it's like, I had to do that work first and find like my self-worth and my self-esteem and like the zest for life again before I could even touch or have motivation to do the steps. And I think through doing that work in conjunction with, you know, the steps and with the therapist and like finding, because my self-worth was in the negatives, you know. I had been told these narratives from this guy I was with in this abusive relationship, and just like my head was full of just lies and negativity. And so I had to do that work first and find purpose and worth before I cared about admitting that I was powerless.
You've talked a lot about self-worth and this loving family that you came from. Why do you think you were so ready to devalue yourself once you started going down the road of drugs? And
I think I got away from the connection of my family. Like there was started to be an estranged relationship, and I was surrounding myself with not good people. And when I first got sober, I remember being so angry at myself because I thought it was about strength and weakness. And you're smarter than that. You were raised better. How did you let this happen? You're walking around with a cane. Your mom's upset. And I just had to realize that I have this disease, I have a spiritual malady, I have this physical allergy, and it wasn't about choice. I didn't have a choice anymore. But I really believe that I got away from the connection, and I, got off the path a little bit.
Did you have the tattoos before or after the sobriety?
I had some of them before. This sleeve is a sobriety sleeve, and then I have some tattoos on my legs because they were told me I was going to walk with a cane for the rest of my life. And I'm not. So
Walking with a cane.
Walking with a cane.
Far from the opposite.
Yeah.
So you stay at High Watch for a year. Sean, you haven't left because you work there now.
No.
Can you guys, let's talk about the joy a little bit
Yeah.
because, obviously the story is very powerful and emotional. Can you guys just talk a little bit about what it's like to be siblings in recovery and what life looks like today?
Our dialogue is much different than it's ever been, and the things that we find joy in having conversations about, and our family reunions. My dad's one of 13. I mean, there's 100 of us every 2 years that get together, and there's a few of us that escape a couple times a week and go to a meeting. And we kind of have our own group of sober family members within the family, and that's really cool too. But it's at the end of the day, man, it's the ability to be present for each other is the biggest gift that recovery has given me. And I'm going to give a shout out to Gary Fisher right now, because so on the driving range in Kiowa when I was about 4 years sober, and he just nonchalantly walks by me and says, "Hey, you know what, Sean, can you believe we drank and drug ourselves into these lives?" And I think about that all the time, because I wouldn't be where I am today. I don't think I'd ever have the relationship that I have with her specifically, my other siblings and my parents, that if I didn't go through the trials and tribulations to eventually get beaten down into a place of reasonableness, to take some semblance of suggestion and find recovery. And I wouldn't have picked up that phone that night when they called me. I wouldn't have had money to put in my gas tank to drive to Ohio. So that relationship dynamics today is what they taught me in this 12-step fellowship is we show up no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's what's most important.
I mean, Sean, look, we've probably downplayed our friendship a little bit here. We're very close. I've never seen you like this.
Not many people have.
Well, what is going on? I mean, is it just the emotions of recalling it? Is it joy? What are you feeling right now? Because I think that's important for listeners to hear. I don't know. It's emotion.
Yeah.
To have the image in your head of what this disease can do, and not just the disease of alcoholism, trauma, mental health, right? Being trapped in a relationship, all those things, and those images that are still in my head of her walking down, scaling the walls in that hotel, to her sending me a screenshot Monday morning of a job offer. You can't make this shit up. Man.
Yeah. If that's not the promises, I don't know what it is. It's really cool. And then to spin it on him, all these people in our lives at work and friends that we've made in recovery and that know him, how he is. And it's I got to see the other side and the come up. And so it's when I came into AA and recovery, I knew that it worked. I knew that AA worked because I see it happening, And
that's the thing that's so interesting about it. It's just that unique qualification that the three of us have to really be able to help someone else. And you're probably not sitting in this chair talking to me unless you've seen your brother and your cousin and these other people in your life go through. And even seeing that, you still held on to the idea that you weren't an addict.
Not me. It didn't look like this. It looked like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the substance, right?
Yeah.
It's not the substance. I mean,
Oh, it's the thinking. It's like if I have nothing to be grateful for today, I always say I'm grateful for being relieved of the mental obsession, because that is just like, if you know, you know, and it's got its grips on people.
is it public knowledge that you got this job?
It's starting to be, yeah.
Is that gonna be hard for you, Sean?
I mean, we still live together, so like that's a blessing. But like,
You'll commute to Yale.
Yeah,
How far is it?
it's an hour.
Okay.
3 days a week, yeah.
But the hope is that she's always going to stay connected to High Watch in some
Yeah.
per diem capacity. I'm going to miss her. You know, she technically works in the department that I oversee, and she, you know, really holds it down in her position, and she's going to be very, you know, missed in the role that she does there. So that's going to be hard. But like, there's so much of me that's just so happy to see the hard work, like her grinding every weekend, working 6 days a week, studying for nurse. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
she's done this thing, and you know, she had a vision when she was in High Watch. She's like, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna do this, and like over the past 5 years, I've seen her execute it,
Yeah.
and it's given me a shit ton of motivation.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's been interesting for me because, Sean, I've known you a long time. I've had many people speak to me about the impact you've had on their life, and I didn't know Kathleen from the next person. I mean, this is 5 years sober.
Yeah, coming up on
And
5.
then, you know, at release, some of these women start to come in now that know Kathleen, you know, and they're talking about you and the way that you've impacted them. And it's really, the ripple effect is wild. The ripple effect of the two of you getting sober and the number of lives that have been impacted. I mean, you can't quantify it, you know, and
Yeah.
that's what makes recovery so special. Sean, what's next for you? I mean, I know she's going to go take on the world. I mean,
Spread the wings.
You're at High Watch, which you want to talk a couple minutes just about the work you guys do there.
yeah. I mean, ever since I stepped on the hallowed grounds of High Watch, which has been in existence since 1939, and you know, I came in a 12-step guy, and the traditions of you know, Bill being a part of such a fascinating, you know, treatment center, and like, you know, for 75 years it was a spiritual retreat. People went up there and they sat in a chapel and they learned about the 12 steps and they left. And you know, today we're much more of a sophisticated substance use disorder treatment facility that has all levels of care. But like, I've been to probably over 150 facilities throughout the country. There's nothing that brings me the same feeling that I get every time I step onto the grounds at High Watch. There's something special there. If you go back and watch some of the early historians of High Watch, there's a video that says, like, it describes like the place, this little cup in the hills, and how you could cut it with a knife. It's that palpable. And so the goals for me is just to continue to do what I'm doing, try to beat Zach in a marathon this year would be absolutely fantastic. Those are deeper aspirations, but
Well, I love you, Sean. Kathleen, by proxy, I love you too. I mean, your guys, I mean, here, just in closing, as I sit here completely blown away, having been moved to tears a couple times in this conversation, you talk about something special happening at High Watch. There's something special happening right here in this room right now. You know, like, and the takeaway is that the family can recover. And what keeps coming up for me is you can have the best doctors, the best psychiatrists, the best therapists. The biggest thing I tell families is just don't give up.
Yeah.
You just got to hold on, because your dad answered that phone call, just like
Yeah.
my dad answered my phone call, and so on. So good luck.
Thank you.
As a nurse,
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be sending some people down to High Watch
what
that
kind
come
of
in.
insurance do you have?
Yeah. Sean, what do you tell families based on your experience?
yeah, I mean, we have our family education workshop this weekend on Saturday, and I get up and I give a presentation for 45 minutes, and I'm going to go back to Father Martin Ashley. He has one of my favorite quotes of all time. He says, "What happens when emotion and intellect collide? What wins?" And emotion wins every single time. And us as treatment providers, we're trying to provide intellectual information to make the best right decision for your loved one that's suffering from substance use disorder. And sometimes we get so caught up in the emotion, because I'm going to lose that battle every time. I can provide you with intellect all day long, tell you what the logical thing to do is, tell you the statistics. If you do this, then you have the best chance of staying sober. But at the end of the day, until the family chooses to participate in the intellectual side of things, it's going to be really challenging for their loved one to get sober. So in a nutshell, that's how I sort of describe this, in terms of the enabling and the boundaries and all of that kind of stuff. It comes down to, are we making a decision today based on emotion, or are we making a decision based on professional advice and intellect?
Yeah, Sean, you're a powerhouse in this field and in the community, and
100%.
I'm just grateful that you guys got so vulnerable. Is there anything you'd like to say to each other before we close?
I was thinking about like summing you up, which is hard to do. And what came to mind was like language of the heart. Just like hearing you on phone calls with families at like 10:30 at night, just like grinding. And it's just like people
Say it to him.
Yeah, just like grinding, and just you're so passionate. And it really is like the language of the heart, and I think that sums it up. Yeah.
And if there's something that I could say, is just the immense amount of gratitude that I have for our relationship today.
Mm-hmm.
And I can meaningfully say that I love you as a brother, as a sober family member.
Yeah.
And like, I hope that there's going to be many more years of peace,
Mm-hmm.
tranquility, and our relationship of present-mindedness moving forward.
That's awesome. This has been great.
That's a
Thank you,
wrap.
Zach.
Thank you, guys.